From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Zaxby's
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi.
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! What's up, everybody? Welcome on into Wake Up Warchant, proudly presented by Zaxby's. Indescribably good. Shout out to the big homie. That's what I would say if I was 23 years old. Every now and then, Corey, I kind of pause and I just think, what would, and then I kind of hop into a virtual time machine and think, like, what would 7-year-old Aslan think? What would 34-year-old Aslan do in this situation? 23-year-old Aslan would probably, if he was hosting a podcast, would probably call everybody the big homie. That's what he would do.
Okay. All right.
With that said, shout out to Chris Hendricks, who tweets at us, eat Zaxby's, go Knowles, hashtag wake up. Looks like he's got himself a Zalad. Ooh, I don't know. Ooh, it's kind of like a southwesternish kind of flair, it looks like. Ranch, though, looks like he's going with. He's a ranch guy on his Zalad.
Nice.
A little buffalo.
I am too, actually.
Ooh, yeah, a little buffalo sauce on there. I like it. All right. Look, I see some Cobb action up top, too. Things with the missus. She's got a little egg in there. Going with the Cobb. Are you
There's
ever going to
nothing
go
like egg on a salad.
Nothing like egg on a salad. Are you going to go to any of the Braves games? Like, are you going to go hang out with your people, like out front, Truist Park, and just kind of breathe in the postseason?
No, I'm not breathing in anyone.
Oh, touche.
But also, apparently, I guess we're recording this before the game on Monday night, but they're going to have like 11,000 fans at the game.
Oh,
So that's going to be interesting.
huh?
I don't know who got there. I haven't read up on it to know like who was available to get tickets. I assume maybe each team got like 5,000 season ticket holders had a chance to like have a lottery or something to get them. I don't know. But yeah, apparently there's going to be like 11,000 fans at the NLCS per game.
Where is that being played at?
Arlington at the Rangers Stadium.
Oh, okay.
So, I don't know. We'll see.
That was kind of weird on Sunday night. You had the NBA Finals. You had, obviously, everything going on in the NFL. And you also had Game 1 of the ALCS. And that was – I don't even know if that made the A block. And I was wondering if it was because it was the Rays and the Astros. Like, it was the Yankees and the Astros. Would that be in the A block? Like, would it be near the top of the show?
No, well, NFL is always going to be at the top. And then you did have, like, the finals, like the final game of the NBA season. Yeah. Like, so you have the NFL, which will always be number one. And then the NBA is, it was the deciding game to crown a champion. So
let's go. We're back.
I don't think the ALCS was gonna, no matter who was in it, was gonna be at the top of everybody's head. It's tough for baseball. Like NFL always makes it tough, but then also you throw into it the NBA, and yeah, it's not really galvanizing the nation. But still, I appreciate it. Not just because my team's in it. I just appreciate baseball. I like baseball. I like watching it. I like watching a lot of strikeouts.
I have the roster in a laminated sort of sleeve that's on the work desk here at the Midtown offices. And for some reason, my eye caught the pronunciation guide for Parker Grotehouse. It is, I've been saying it wrong. I apologize, Parker. It is literally Grode, like G Road, Groad, all caps, dash house. So it's not Grote. I thought it was like Grote, like rhymes with throat. No, man, it's Grotehouse.
Is it really?
Yeah.
So like Roadhouse.
Exactly, yeah, Swayze.
Yeah, man. I got enough time. I'll get enough sleep when I'm dead. That was Sam Elliott's line in that movie. Folks, if you haven't seen Roadhouse, I would say Citizen Kane, maybe. Maybe, like, I don't know, can you name another film that comes close to Roadhouse other than Citizen Kane?
Like Gone with the Wind, maybe?
I don't know. Gone with the Wind. I'm not a big fan of that, even though it doesn't paint my home in a great light, which it shouldn't be painted in that period of time. Atlanta doesn't come out looking great in that movie. But her house, Margaret Mitchell's house, that's like a tourist attraction in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. But so, yeah, Citizen Kane and then Roadhouse are probably, I think most film scholars would say those are the two. Okay. If you had to see two movies before you die, those are the ones. So, folks, go see Roadhouse. Go see Roadhouse if you haven't already.
On Monday, FSU announced that they're going to continue to follow the CDC guidelines and maintain limited attendance at their games. and masks also on the fans who do attend the games. So if there was any hope that maybe Doak would get packed or a little bit more raucous for apparently another top North Carolina vaulted into the top 5 after is that how we're doing things? The ACC is getting all this respect right now with the Pac-12 on the sideline?
3 of the top 5, right?
Jeez.
If you count Notre Dame, which for this year we do, they got 3 of the top 5. I don't know that North Carolina is one of the 5 best teams in the country. They did just give up 45 points to Virginia Tech. But you know what? They scored 56, which I'm sure Florida State fans are excited to know. They're like, oh, the offense that just made your team look like it had 7 players on the field the whole game. Well, you're going to see a better one this weekend. So good luck. Maybe Sam Howell gets nervous. Maybe he still has some friends from his recruiting trips to Florida State and wants to make them feel good, so he throws them a couple picks. I don't know. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough sledding for the defense on Saturday. I would say the race is to 44.
Oh, okay.
And I would expect North Carolina to get there first. I don't like to be Debbie Downer. We'll see if Jordan Travis is healthy enough to play. It didn't sound like he wouldn't be, but it also wasn't. When Gene asked him on Monday, asked Norvell about his health, he's like he said he was limited on Sunday, and that was really the only thing I listened to. He might have said something else about their positive moving forward, but he always says that. Right. Said that about Hampson 3 weeks in a row. I'm excited to see his progress is what we keep hearing. So we'll see. The fact that he was limited on Sunday, but he could have been limited. He also mentioned that it was just a hard game. Like Travis's body has never been beaten up like that.
Right.
So he's just not used to it. So he might have just been limited because, man, that was a hard game. He was essentially a running back for 20 carries. And for a guy that's had, I don't know how many carries Travis has had in his college life, 30, to get 20 in one game against that defense with those guys, that was a physical thing. I'm sure his body had to adjust to that. So he probably won't be 100% on Saturday, no matter no matter how his hand is. So anyway, my point being, if he's healthy and he's playing, I think he's a good quarterback. I think the offense is pretty dynamic with him there. I think they will score some points and put up some yards and points. I don't trust them to go score for score with a guy like this and a quarterback in an offense like this. That's my hesitation going into the game. If they have to go score for score, which seemingly they will because the Florida State defense is what it is, I don't know that they can win that type of. I think they can win shootouts this year, just not with this team. You know what I mean?
Right. 31 career carries for Jordan Travis coming into the season. He already has 43 on the young season right now. So.
And how many? What do you have? 19 in that game or 18?
19.
Yeah. So yeah, he had 66% of his total carries over the last 3 years, and he equaled that in one game. So,
what would you feel better about? I know you just said, what did you say? 44. Race to 44?
Yeah. Yep.
Would you rather, if you got the option, Florida State either gets the 38 first or scores last? Which do you think would be a better marker of success, potential victory? Like whoever scores last, is that who's going to win?
No. If they got a 38 first, you got yourself a real chance.
Okay.
That doesn't. Now, if it's in the first half, and North Carolina's got 34, well, we'll see. But no, if they get a 38 because they could score last, and it could be, it could be 55 to 27. That could make it 55 to 27 instead of 55 to 20. So no, again, I think Florida State the rest of the way, other than North Carolina and Clemson, I think their offense is good enough to win some shootouts. I think when you look at that schedule, I think they probably, if Travis is this guy and Terry has turned into this guy and Webb is what he thinks he is, and the offensive line continues to improve, I think when you look at the remaining games, other than, the team in orange, they will have the best offense on the field. Not this weekend, though. Okay. And that's a bad, again, when you talk about how great would it be if they were playing Duke this week or Virginia this week, where, you feel like, of course the defense isn't going to get a shutout. The defense couldn't shut out. I'm not even finish that sentence. But you feel like the defense could – that offense is pedestrian enough that the defense could get some stops. I really wonder how the defense is going to slow this offense down and get enough to even keep them under like I said, 45 or 50.
Could they shut out Buford High School?
I haven't. Probably. Okay. I think yes. I think they could. Yeah. Okay. I think there are maybe one or two high schools in the country that would give them problems for 4 quarters. I think there are other. Some high schools have some incredible wide receivers and some really good quarterbacks. But yeah, I think 99% of high schools, Florida State would dominate, even as bad as they play. I think Marvin Wilson would feast. But he's not feasted on anyone else this year, is he?
No, he's not. North Carolina 3-0. Victories over Syracuse 31-6. Week 2 contest against Charlotte was canceled. And then they beat Boston College 26-22. Boston College was actually going for a 2-point conversion to tie that game. Threw an interception. North Carolina returned it for 2 points. And then the 56 they hung on Virginia Tech. They had the 7th total offense in the nation, 8th rushing offense, 27th passing offense, and their total defense right now is 22nd, only allowing 350 yards per contest. But again, 3 games, Syracuse, Boston College, which I think they put some points. They hung 30 or so up on Pitt the other day. So
yeah, well, in overtime, but yeah. And you hear that like they scored 30 against Syracuse. They scored 25 against Boston College or whatever, 24 right? Yeah, really? Yeah. That's not overly impressive, obviously. No. They're not. Again, I'm not saying this is an unstoppable offense. I just think any offense that has a dynamic quarterback is pretty much unstoppable for the Florida State defense this year. I just think he's going to, even if his first or second read isn't open, he's going to trust himself to make the third or fourth read, and by gosh, by that time, somebody will be open. And it's just, unless you pressure him somehow and really affect him, which why would we think that's going to happen? I don't know the fact that they ran for 300-some yards against Virginia Tech too, they're going to try to establish the run. Florida State just played a good offense and got smashed by a running game, so nothing about this sets up as a great matchup. But if you can hold them to 30, good grief. It's crazy to think about. It's crazy to say out loud, but if the Florida State defense can hold North Carolina to like 30 points, they should have a real shot to win the game. Man. I'm just, with good reason, I'm really down on the defense.
North Carolina rushed for 399 yards.
Wow.
Yeah. Some guy, Michael Carter, 17 carries, 200. Actually, I'm sorry. Well, yeah. I thought that was like
in Virginia. The one caveat there.
I thought maybe that was their season totals. No, they had 2 backs. One, Michael Carter, 17 carries, 214 yards, 2 scores, and then Javonte Williams, 20 carries, 169 yards, and 2 scores.
Good
That's
grief.
Fun. That's fun.
Virginia Tech, man. I guess the caveat there is Virginia Tech did have a bunch of dudes out.
Yes.
For COVID protocol. So I don't know how many were starters. I think it was probably 3 or 4, but there was a lot of depth that they lost. And so obviously they just weren't getting any stops at all. The good news is that North Carolina gave up 45 points.
Yeah. So
they're not a brick wall. You can move the ball on them, but you have to finish drives. You can't turn the ball over at all, and you're going to have to create somehow. And you're going to have to dominate the special teams. That's the recipe to win. Your defense isn't stopping them. Your defense probably isn't slowing them down. If you get them to like 10 third down conversions, good for you. But it's such a bad matchup on that side of the ball because the quarterback can move a little bit and he's good and he reads things quickly and has a ton of confidence and weapons that it's going to be a bad matchup in the middle of the field.
Yeah, and I mean, the Boston College game, I guess, they had that weird week, but they actually were off for 2 weeks. I think they had a bye built in there between week 2 and their second and third game. So they had a bit of a layoff and then, obviously came out against West Virginia and kind of showed what they're made of, and then they get Florida State this Saturday. I am interested to see how Florida State bounces back, I guess, is just like a kind of a lazy term, but just they're in the groove of a season now. I mean, just the herky-jerky start of it, playing one game, having a week off, playing Miami, then going to playing Jacksonville State, now playing just this kind of weird sort of rhythm of it that you just really cannot simulate or prepare for. Now it's like, okay, now they're probably in the same class to a certain degree with North Carolina. Now we'll really kind of see apples to apples, or at least, kind of a rotten apple versus an apple. We did speak to head football coach Mike Norvell on Monday, as well as coordinators Kenny Dillingham on the offense, Adam Fuller on the defense, and John Papucha, special teams and defensive ends coach. Lots of questions about the defense. I know people want answers, but there's just not a lot of answers, unfortunately, out there.
And you know, I like that Fuller he answers them by saying like he loves the kids. He loves how hard they work. And I think there's some truth to that. I don't know that he loves all the kids, and I don't think all of them work hard or as hard as they need to. But I think there's a lot of them that are giving them effort, that are really trying. He can't come out and say, "Look, guys, we're just not any good. They're just not good football players." He can't come out and say that. So he has to say, you know, they got to, you know, it's about consistency. It's about doing the like they keep coming back to fundamentals.
Right.
And I keep coming back to, because Norvell said it. He's like, look, he was asked about the defensive line, and he goes, yes, we've got to win more one-on-one battles. He goes, but we've also got to, when we get a one-on-none, we've got to make the play. Meaning, I keep coming back to the Brendan Gant in the hole with the Notre Dame running back. Mm-hmm. That's a one-on-none. You're there with him. You've got to make that play. Well, look, man, he just can't make that play. And it's through no fault of Adam Fuller that he can't make that play. It's through no fault of Adam Fuller that Jaden Large-Woodby can't make some plays, and that Hampson Nasruddin is out, and that Travis Jay, for that matter, is out. There's some things that he just can't say. He can't just say, look, we're not good enough. At certain positions, we're just not good enough. He wouldn't do that. You wouldn't want your coach to do that. I'm sure that's what he's telling his wife or his kids when they're asked, Dad, why can't y'all stop anyone? I'm sure that's what he's saying. But the reality is, at certain positions, they just don't have high enough caliber football players to compete with like a Notre Dame or a Clemson. You know, they're not stopping Travis Etienne. It doesn't matter. Yeah, whatever. He's the guy that scores a lot of touchdowns.
Apparently every game, right? Some sort of streak he set. It's like 30
it's 19 in a row or something.
Okay.
I think I saw that. Hell, it might be 27 in a row or 50 in a row. I don't know how long he's been there. Wasn't he playing with Taj Boyd? That guy's been there forever.
Charlie Whitehurst was handing him.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So Woody Dantzler. It was Woody Dantzler in Etienne in the backfield. So those aren't. You're not. My point is, you're not going to get good answers from him about. Well, if we do this, we're gonna. They're going to continually talk about fundamentals and consistency. But some of the fundamentals they talk about making the one-on-one tackles, about the technique. Some of them, they can do whatever they can. It's just not going to matter. Leonard Warner can do whatever. He can be in the right position a few times a game. Certain guys, it's going to be exploited. He's just not good enough or athletic enough to make plays. The other guys might be, the younger guys, but they're not in the right spot either. So you're really hamstrung with some of these things. The counter to that, though, is there is no chance. I was talking about this with Ira today, and I'm not saying he agreed with this. But what do you think the Florida State defense would have looked like? And maybe I'm completely wrong. What do you think the Florida State defense would have looked like on Saturday night? And this is pie in the sky. It's purely hypothetical. If Kirby Smart was the DC. If only he had only gotten here in August. Or he'd been hired in December. He was tired of the pressure in Athens, tired of losing Alabama. He likes Mike Norvell and just wants to be a DC again. So he comes to Florida State to be the defensive coordinator, and this was his first year. Do you think it looks any different at all?
Absolutely.
I do too. Yeah. I don't think they're going to stop Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame still wins that game. I think Miami still wins that game. But I think there is something that's being lost, and now we're two defensive coordinators into this. It's something that's being lost with the energy, pride, passion, physicality that has to be a hallmark of a Florida State defense. And I think Kirby Smart is maybe a savant. I don't know. You're not going to get Kirby Smart, and I don't know who's out there, and I don't know that Adam Fuller can't do the job. He certainly has to be graded on a curve because of what he was left. But by gosh, I would like to see these guys play downhill and play physical. And other than Renardo Green, Amari Gaynor, and sometimes Asante Samuel, you don't see a whole lot of it. And I don't know why. Do they not trust the coaches? Do they not believe in them? Or are they just not purely good enough? But you cannot be good enough and still play hard And Memphis's team did that. That was a hallmark of the Memphis teams. They didn't have a ton of talent on defense. They gave up points, but they also hit you and played hard. The results were still the results, so you can roll your eyes and say that doesn't really matter if you're still giving up 35 a game. But they played hard. They were physical. They sometimes were physical at the point of attack. These guys, nothing redeeming. So I don't know. That's not fair because obviously Kirby Smart is one of the best defensive coaches in America, and he's built that culture now where those guys fly to the ball. But I will not bring up Georgia again for the rest of the week, folks. I promise.
Oh, stop it! It's relevant. It's relevant.
But I do think that there is something missing with. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if it's. I don't know how you coach that.
Well, how does this defensive line look worse?
Yep, right.
I mean, they're all the same guys. I mean, I guess it's physically possible for you to get worse. Not everybody gets better every single season, but it's just hard to imagine that this defensive line would be this underperforming right now. The linebackers, I will give it to you for sure. There is a dearth of options there. There is a lack of talent for sure. But with the back end of the defense, and I know Hams is not out there, Travis Jay's not out there. Those are significant losses.
They really are, and we can't just dismiss those. But Hampson's not going to be there next year anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, maybe he will be. Maybe he comes back because he didn't get to. Who knows how this season goes if he puts anything on film? But I doubt Hampson will be back. So you've got to learn to play without him anyway. You've got to make the most of what you have. And Jane Lars Woodby's got to just figure it out, man. Or they got to get somebody out there that can play and make plays.
I just don't know what other questions we try to ask. I mean, we asked what we could ask. We can't straight up be like, hey man, you're a bum. Why are you collecting a paycheck? Life doesn't work that way. But
are people watching that? Because that wasn't, I guess I did criticize Fuller by saying that Kirby Smart would have this defense playing better, but this defense would still be bad. I just think it would look a little different, but it would still be pretty bad. It might, for all we know, it might drive Kirby to quit. After 2 weeks of coaching these guys, I can't do it.
Can't do it.
Sorry, can't win with them.
Can't coach with them.
So I don't know, but I don't know that. I'm sure there are people out there that are saying Fuller doesn't know what he's doing. His schemes are terrible. I don't think that's true. I think the guy knows football. I think he knows how to game plan to try to slow down something. He does not have a lot of great horses to go out there and compete with. But I do think it's fair to wonder why the horses he does have look like that and play like that. And why hasn't anything changed from last year? Why isn't there any sense of, I don't know. Again, I just keep coming back to physicality. There's just none. And again, maybe if they'd had, Dillingham brought it up on Monday, they've had a total of 6 scrimmages and games, total. In now 10 months. That is not a lot. That is not a lot of time to develop physicality, to develop leverage. All these things you have to coach. They didn't get a great chance to do that. I get it. He has been put in a really unfair position in the sense that everybody on the staff, everybody on one of these first year staffs, because they didn't get a chance to do what they needed to do in the offseason. But that. There's no way they can. Are they playing like that in practice? Do they just kind of coast to the ball in practice? That's what you wonder. Because that stuff has to get cleaned up, man. They're not going to be good. They're not going to slow down most good offenses. But you'd like them to at least punish some people and play fast and play aggressive. And, man, that defensive line gets just pushed around or certainly doesn't do any pushing around. Maybe they fill their gaps okay, but they don't make plays, and the linebackers are a mess.
Well, that's the thing. Even if they are hitting their gaps, it's if they don't, what's the next line of defense? The linebackers, the defensive line. If they can't make the plays, if this is all being created to funnel, action towards the linebacking core, then man, we're not doing it right because that's clearly not a strength of this team right now. But they're going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball. You can't have, your cornerbacks come up and make every tackle and just have your defensive tackles make tackles in the backfield every single down. I for some reason just kind of believe that the same things that held back Harlan Barnett with this team, I think, are the same sort of things that Adam Fuller is kind of facing right now. I was hoping it was going to happen. I always thought there was a little bit of a disconnect between the way Harlan would teach and practice. Like, you would see him talking and instructing on a GA or an analyst and trying to show cornerbacks like how they want their technique to be when they're having to defend a pass. And like, he would just try to, I don't know, maybe just because it's a different vocabulary, maybe it's elementary language to a football player, but just the way the terminology and the way he would explain things just seems sort of long-winded to me, where it's defense. I mean, the whole success of defense is predicated on getting to the ball fast, getting to the ball carrier, get to the spot first. And I just felt like there was a kind of paralysis by analysis with the way that Harlan was trying to be so, like, professorial in the way that he would teach and instruct. And in the way that Adam Fuller talks to us during these press conferences, like, I having the feeling that he's probably the same way when he's talking to his players. I think he's really, maybe there's too much information. It's too many keys. The fundamentals are maybe being too much, maybe it's overload to a certain degree, because again, maybe that explains the lack of ferocity, the lack of speed. It's just because they're trying to process too many things. And that was
or
kind
maybe
of
they're just not very good. Like, there's that too.
The linebackers, yeah. I'll give it to the linebackers.
That's what I mean,
yeah.
the linebackers. Yeah, but the linebackers are the ones that are diagnosing the most. Okay. They're the ones that are reading and reacting the most. They're the ones that have to pick up on keys the most, and they can't do it. Whether they're overloaded or just slow or not physical, they can't. They just aren't. Are you too young?
Well, I think
they're
it's
not
the
doing it.
defensive line too, though, Corey, right? Because that's what, I don't know if it was Norvell or Fuller said. I think I asked Norvell about this whole idea of fundamentals. Are they not trusting the fundamentals that they've been taught since they played Pee Wee football, or is it the fundamentals that Adam Fuller and his scheme sort of require? Because
I think you asked Fuller that.
No, I asked Norvell that, and he was talking about, there's some times where, you don't trust your eyes, or you're supposed to go to one side of or maybe it was Fuller.
It was Fuller.
I thought I asked Norvell that.
Hey, buddy, I transcribed the whole thing. It was
right.
Fuller, buddy.
You're right.
Because he said,
but he was saying the defensive
he goes,
lineman,
that's a broad question, but I understand it.
Yeah. But I think even the defensive linemen are kind of guilty about that. So, I mean, I think that it's not like a lack of effort. I think they're probably just trying to do too much. And again, I think it's going away from, like, their instincts of.
Wouldn't it be nice if the Florida State defenders just stopped trying to do so much?
Yeah.
Just do less. Less, you know what I mean? Like, we've heard that now for 3 years. They care, or more than that, actually. They care too much. They're pressing. They're trying to do too much.
Yeah.
It certainly never looks like they're trying to do too much. Like, oh my gosh, we had 11 guys running to the wrong. No, it was 2 guys running that way. A couple guys hung out. A couple guys didn't know what they were doing at all. It's just like every play. You don't see guys that are you don't really see guys that are trying to do too much. I'm sure that is the case. I'm sure that is happening. I'm sure that is a part of pressing. But I just think, again, that sounds like coach speak to say, look, he can't get to the spot he has to get to. He doesn't see it quickly enough. I go back to when Jimbo talked about Carlos Williams. Carlos Williams is an all-time great athlete in Florida State history. Mm-hmm. Think about the fact that dude came in as a safety. He started one game in his career really at defense, and I think he was the defensive MVP against Georgia Tech that game at linebacker. And then he moved the next year to running back and became an NFL draft pick at running back and scored 60-yard touchdowns. I mean, he's just an all-time freak of an athlete. But he could not process stuff, and he was a bright enough guy. But Jimbo said he just did not have what it took. Because I asked him off the record about Carlos as a safety. He's like, look, he doesn't see the ball in the air well. He just doesn't break on the ball in the air. He's got all the physical tools. He's 220 pounds and is one of the fastest guys on the team. But he doesn't react quick enough. There's a pause there when he should be instinctually reacting, and it's just not coming. Because he had been there at that point 2 or 3 years, and it just wasn't coming, so that's when they decided to make the move. I just think there are some guys on this team that just don't have that trigger. And you see it in every walk of life. You see it in every sports, whether it's 12-year-olds or college kids, or I guess they wouldn't get to the NFL if they didn't have it. But where some guys, it just takes too long. It never becomes instinctual. They never react quickly enough. They don't fire when they're supposed to fire at the ball. And I just think you have enough of those guys on this defense that it's just a bad combination. And when people talk about football players, like they just get it. Like they just like Telvin, for all the bad mistakes he made his first couple years, there would be plays where he just diagnosed something perfectly and had an 8-yard loss in the backfield. Just out of nowhere, 22, a flash, comes and makes a play. And he had that in him. You don't see a lot of that from these guys. You just don't see a lot of, like, we see the mistakes, and Telvin had those too, but Telvin also had the game-changing defensive plays, or at least drive-changing plays, where it becomes 2nd and 18 and the drive was essentially over. You don't see that with these guys. At linebacker or safety, so far. You know what I mean? Like, you don't see guys breaking on balls. Greg Reed was a football player. The first interception he had in his career was that Miami game, and he was part of a woeful defense in 2009. It was the Monday night game. His first game as a freshman, he comes off the man he's covering, which he was not supposed to do, because he just instinctually knew where Ja'Cory Harris was going to throw it, or thought he knew where he was going to throw it, and he went and made a play. And there just isn't, and people hear the term playmakers, and they think, oh, you're talking about Rashad Green and Peter Warwick and Warwick Dunn and Dalvin Cook and those guys. No. Making plays is the definition of a playmaker. Go intercept a ball. Go bat a ball down. Go sack a quarterback or have a TFL because you diagnose it. You've read your keys. You've done enough studying during the week that you can recognize it, like the Notre Dame kid did on when he blew up LaDamian Webb. That is a playmaker. It wasn't a fumble. It wasn't a turnover, but it changed the drive. It ended the drive. Just because he read his keys, thought what is going to happen, and fired and went and made a play. These guys don't ever do that. Can you coach that out of them? I don't know. So far, it hadn't been done, though. That was long-winded. I'm sorry, man.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Carlos Williams also faster than Kermit Whitfield, too. Let's not forget about that.
As fast, at least as fast. That's crazy. What a freak. Yeah. What an absolute freak that dude was. Yeah. Is he in the league? He's not in the league anymore, is he?
Oh, Kremit or Carlos?
Did you say Kremit?
Yeah.
Kremit. No, Carlos, because I know he was.
Oh,
he had
yeah.
He had didn't he have the performance enhancing drug suspension?
Yeah, he was killing it, man. He was like scoring touchdowns in real games. It was amazing. Yeah. And then well, you talked about, do you have the players, and doesn't seem like it, but again, it seems like they're committed at least to figuring out or giving these guys on the job training, at least at linebacker.
Yep.
And this is, I think maybe they kind of open the door, or not open the door, but just, hey, we realize where we're deficient at. The only way to get that better is to try new pieces, and the only way to do that is to actually do it in game rather than practice. Because I don't know if he said it or Norvell said it about, just because you have experience, doesn't mean you're going to be good, which was kind of like an indictment of probably a lot of people on that side of the ball. But yeah, we'll continue to probably see Steven Dix and DJ Lundy, and I would imagine they're probably given some really simple keys right now. So if they can't succeed in that, then they're going to look it's going to be really rough for them, kind of the way we saw that first touchdown that Notre Dame popped off, where it was mainly Janaris' fault, I think, but then DJ kind of compounded by coming in, guns a-blazing and not, being able to clean it up.
And then Steven Dix taking, just running into the middle of the line instead of recognizing it and, skating across the line towards the outside. He just ran straight into I think he tried to shoot a gap like Telvin would. But the play right there is to skirt down the line and hopefully meet, once you recognize the play. But he didn't recognize the play, so he got confused and got out of position too.
Yeah. So you just hope that, I guess, as these games go on, those guys get reps and they're able to, figure it all out. So that's kind of where we are.
But I hope people don't think that when I say that there's not a lot of great football players on the defense that I'm absolving Fuller, because I'm not. Because his role right now is to get the very best out of the players he does have. And that certainly isn't happening.
Yeah.
So you can have not a ton of great players and still get the most out of them. We know that Steven Dix and DJ Lundy and other guys, Griffiths and Dorton, whoever, name a guy, isn't going to be great in week 4. We get it. They're not great football players, but they're not hitting their head on the ceiling of what they can be at week 4.
Right.
They're way down. They're crouching in a corner. They're not standing up at all near the ceiling. So that just because the players aren't great doesn't mean you can't get more out of them. Like it's not like you watch these guys and go, man, he's given everything he has. Like that's as good as he can play. That's as good as they can play. They're just not quite good enough. I haven't said that once this year. Not one time have I thought, man, they were coached up as well as they possibly could be. Just sometimes the other team makes plays. That's just not happening. So there's plenty of fault to go around. Players aren't good, and they're not being coached well either. It's a pretty rough combination.
Not palatable. Not palatable. Otherwise, offensively, anything get you excited or at least make you feel encouraged? When we spoke to Norvell and Dillingham, obviously they're quite content with Jordan Travis. I mean, Norvell, was talking about the poise he played with and was talking about some of the throws he made, big-time throws. So I do think that at least maybe takes something off their mind, a little less anxiety for them. It feels like they do have a quarterback now finally.
Yeah, no, nothing they said changed anything. I think they I was trying to think of anything that Dillingham said that caught my ear. I can't really think of anything other than he said, he admitted that Travis missed some plays. Like he made some decisions that were bad decisions. But overall, he liked that in the moment, he said that the thing that Jordan did well was they would talk to him during the game about a mistake he had made or a read he didn't see, and he was correcting it in game. Like he was applying it. He was applying what he was being told and the coaching he was taking and applying it to the game. And then the results came and they made bigger plays and better plays. And again, that might seem like obvious, but that doesn't happen all the time. For him to point that out gives you hope that this kid, again, it's not just pure athleticism. You can't play the quarterback position with pure athleticism. You just can't. You have to be able to read some things. And the fact that he made some adjustments in game, as Notre Dame was adjusting to him, he was making adjustments, they were making adjustments, and he was applying it, bodes well moving forward. And again, we don't know if this guy's going to be the quarterback next year. We don't know if he's going to be the quarterback in November. They might have an all-timer waiting on deck. But, man, it does give you hope that, number one, you've got a legitimate quarterback option now, which you have not had, no matter what Chubba becomes. And then also you have a bridge to Chubba. And you see what this offense can be. It's still not close to what it's going to be, but you see what this offense can be with a guy at quarterback that can play like this. And I think what I'm really interested in is how they play these next 2 weeks, especially if Travis is healthy enough and he isn't limited by his hand and can play like the fully operational. I want to see how they build on that performance against Notre Dame. Yeah, it was nice what they did against Jacksonville State, but that was Jacksonville State. Now they should have some real confidence. And how does that carry over to practice? How does that carry over into a game against a team that isn't as good as Notre Dame on the defensive side of the ball? Are you going to build on it? Are you going to go right back into the turnover, sloppy, false starting, sack allowing, gross-looking offense that we've seen the last 3 or 4 years? Because I think this week in that regard is a really nice test and a good step. A big time opportunity to prove to the Florida State fan base, okay, yeah, we got something here. These guys, especially on this side of the ball, know what they're doing. They are improving leaps and bounds within the course of a season. That is good to see because it hasn't been seen here in a good long while.
I think it's kind of interesting to hear the way, like the voice inflection of Dillingham and Norvell changes, like when they talk about their guys, kind of like the guys that they've brought in.
Yeah,
that have
bought in. They love themselves some Robert Scott, don't they?
Oh man, yeah, a fighter. He's a fighter, man. All he knows how to do is compete.
That's how his mama raised him.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Dillingham actually said that. Yeah. That was a quote.
So it is interesting to hear them kind of say that, and I get it. They inherited a bunch of players that probably they could do without, but that's not the way it works in college football. You have to figure out a way to make all this kind of work. And we talked about this last week because somebody commented on warchant.com's Tribal Council about Norvell talking about how Tamorrion Terry had probably put his best week of practice together before that Jacksonville State game, and then on Monday, Dillingham kind of followed that up and was saying that Terry's, quote, done a phenomenal job working the last 2 weeks. He's one of those guys that has completely changed his attitude towards practice, which is a compliment, but also kind of an indictment as well. And I guess kind of, again, just it illuminates what they inherited and underlines the fact that they didn't have those 15 practices in the spring and didn't have a traditional kind of OTA summer camp to instill these sort of things. Because for me, the guy who would sit here and criticize everything that was happening at practice under Willie Taggart, the fact that we saw what we saw in those first 3 practices this spring that we felt so good about probably wasn't enough to flush everything out. You're not gonna flush out 2 years of substandard practices, 3 years if you want to count Jimbo, although I don't know how many of those. I still think probably the first 2 months of that 2017 season, he was still, or at least you throw in the Clemson week, they played too good to make you think that they went into practice sleepwalking the entire time.
Right.
But, I don't know, again.
No, I think he more sleptwalk on the recruiting trail than that season until that Clemson game, because then I think Boston College was right after that, right?
I don't even remember.
But that's when the season obviously was derailed completely. Yeah. But I don't think they weren't. It's not like they weren't playing hard, right? For Jimbo that first half of that season.
Yeah. So I just think again, this is. I don't want to give excuses because again everybody else is dealing with it, but not every coach is dealing with players that probably weren't held to a high enough standard for several years. And they're having to work and get this stuff out of them. And, hey, I mean, Terry, that's 2 weeks in a row he's put together, again, the kind of stat line that we were expecting, and they're pleased with it. They're pleased with it enough to kind of talk about it and be public about it. So I would think that means they feel confident that some sort of proverbial corner has been turned, so that kind of gets you excited, too, out there.
And I think, with him, it might have just been like because, yes, it is concerning that he wasn't practicing the way he needed to practice. I think part of that is probably he looked at this coaching staff as if I did you guys a favor. I didn't have to come back. I could be in the NFL right now. I'm the man. I'm the guy on this offense. I'm the NFL guy on this offense. And you guys need me more than I need you. I'm not saying that's what the case was, but you could understand if it was. But it changed real quick on that sideline in Miami. Now, look, he was banged up anyway. They didn't even know if he was going to play. But he still, I think the message was sent loud and clear that Saturday night in Miami and that Sunday or Monday when he met with Norvell. Like, buddy, we don't, like, we're here for the long haul. This could be your last year in college football. And this is how you're going to go out? Like, you need us too. And you've got to change the way you practice, man. And if you change the way you practice and meet the standard, then watch how you take off. And now they've got that to prove to them. You know what I mean? They've got that example. Like, look.
It's evidence. Yeah, it's other people.
Yeah, there's
on the
evidence,
team as well.
and I don't think that's coach speak. I don't think that's like, he's been practicing great. It's about time he played. I think legitimately he had been practicing much better than they had ever seen him practice the last 2 weeks, and now he's also played much better. He had probably had his best game ever at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So there's more ample evidence, not just to Tamorrion Terry, but everybody in that wide receiver group, really everybody on the team. Like, look, here's a guy that finally bought in. It took him too long probably for a guy that,
he's going to be a first-round pick. 17 years.
Yeah, the guy that's going to be wearing a gold jacket in 20 years. It probably took too long for him to buy in, but look what happened to him when he bought in. Look how much better he's playing. Now, he could also say, hey, look who's throwing me the ball. But that's different. That's a different conversation. Still, I think that's great evidence. I think that as you build a program, it's stuff like that matters. So, I expect that to continue. And I think LaDamian Webb is a guy that plays hard every practice. He just strikes me as that guy. I talked about Greg Reed earlier as a football player. That dude is a football player. I think you could go put him at linebacker and he'd figure out a way to go make plays.
Yeah.
I just think some people get the sport. So, I just think that's a really positive sign that they got through to Tamorrion Terry. Because, look, man, they were 0-2 and had just gotten embarrassed and then had Jacksonville State coming in. That was a really tenuous spot where I don't think either one of us would have been surprised if we saw a release from Florida State that Tuesday after the Miami game saying that Tamorrion Terry had opted out or something else had happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I just don't think any of us, I don't think anybody listening to this show would have been that surprised. But no, in fact, the last 2 weeks he's had 16 catches for 180 yards or whatever it's been. He's turned and made blocks downfield, which Dillingham brought up today. That's a good sign, man. Because if they can get through to that guy, then wait, and he's bought in. Well, what's it going to look like when the whole team, which we have to wait till it's the team of their own guys, when they buy into what they're being coached to do. It could look if they can take the kind of leap If an entire team takes the kind of leap that Tamorrion Terry did from week 1 to week 4, that's, again, positive.
Speaking of leaps on the way out, I probably should have mentioned this earlier when we were talking about the defense. I liked Harlan Barnett for a good solid year and a half, and then, just a little too much getting beat up on.
Well, you liked him as a person?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I like, it looks like, yeah. Because we were like, I got to get that same energy. You guys weren't this mean to, you guys were meaner to Harlan Barnett than you've been to Adam Fuller. It's like, well, it's only been.
Not the first couple weeks.
Yeah. But I did like how he said, obviously, he's a big fan of the show and your analogy about steps. And they don't have to be big boy, grown-up steps. They can be baby steps, right? Like baby steps. I mean, he did admit that, he wants to make like a big leap.
Yeah.
Like,
and he wants to do it overnight.
Overnight.
Yeah, he said one flight of stairs, right? He goes, we're not just looking to make a step. We want to go up a whole flight of stairs.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, you're right. That was that. He said it better than I've said it. He said it better in 4 seconds, and I've tried to articulate it for 4 months. And my man Adam Fuller said it better in 4 seconds. Again, though, he said we want to do it overnight, but you obviously you have to take that first step first. But they want to improve really quickly overnight. That's what they're trying to do.
He also didn't, and we gave him sort of the cop out of, hey man, even Nick Saban gave up, 600 yards of offense or something. He's like, hey man, I don't care. I think he said it really politely, like as respectfully as I can say this, like I do not care.
Yeah, Gene asked him about does he look around the country to see, because did the previous 8 or 9 months in this country make it harder for defenses to adjust? Is that why offenses are so far ahead, and that's why Alabama's giving up 48 and the Florida Texas A&M game and even the Virginia
Missouri,
Carolina
LSU,
game?
et cetera.
And he said I'm not trying to be rude, but I don't care. Yeah. Like he goes, I have a TV, I have a phone, but that doesn't matter to us. Like we're not coaching to that. We're just trying to be the best we can be, kind of thing. And that's essentially saying that's no excuse. That they've got to get better, and nobody's arguing with that. We'd like to see him go up a flight of stairs, wouldn't we?
Oh man, that'd be great. I
mean, imagine holding Carolina to 16 points.
Ooh, come on, let's not get carried away.
I mean, that's not going to happen. But all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, they're improving leaps and bounds. This is unbelievable.
Yeah, put Florida on the schedule. That's what I would say.
Travis would light them up, wouldn't he?
Woo! We'll see him in a bowl game. Game.
Travis versus Trask? Yeah. You kidding me? But yeah, doesn't it feel good that if he, again, we'll see, but it sure seems like Florida State is now set at the quarterback position. And what I mean by that is I'm not saying Jordan Travis is the guy moving forward. I don't know that he's the guy again in November. But you know what the baseline is now that you're working with.
Absolutely.
The only thing that could happen is Chuba could actually be better than what we've seen from Jordan Travis. And that's exciting, right? Because again, it hadn't mattered who Florida State has played lately. No quarterback had led 5 straight touchdown drives in 6 out of 7 like Jordan Travis had against Jacksonville State, and then came back and played the way he did against Notre Dame. Again, those are the 2 of the best quarterback games we've seen around here in a long time. Now that's your baseline guy. He almost, I think among Florida State fans, is like the fallback plan. Right. Well, if Chuba doesn't work out, we've still got this guy that just put up 300 total yards against Notre Dame. That's a good position to be in finally. And you've got a kid coming in that could be good too. Can Altmaier run?
No.
Then he doesn't need to come.
No, I mean, not like Jordan Travis. I mean, I would say he's probably closer to Blackman than Travis on the spectrum,
okay.
But he's more nimble than Blackman.
So, and he might be great. I was just kidding about that. So you've got a chance, man. But you know now that you're not relegated to bad quarterback play.
Yeah.
You know, going into most games, you were going to have at least competent quarterback play and perhaps game-making dynamic quarterback play. And because even if Travis struggles against North Carolina or struggles against Clemson or another game, we've seen his ceiling. Or maybe we haven't, I don't know, but we've seen how good he can be. Yeah. We never saw anything from Blackman that made you think, by gosh, that can win you some games. That's the kind of quarterback play you need. We've now seen it 2 games in a row where you're like, by gosh, if the defense could play a lick at all, this quarterback's good enough to have an 8 or 9 win season. And I think now, and he's only a sophomore. and he'll be a sophomore again next year. So you have either Travis for the next 3 years or you have Chubba for the next 3 or 4 years. I feel like that should make Florida State fans pretty excited, at least about one position on the field.
Yeah, man. Not too shabby. All right, hey, we're going to do a live show later on Tuesday for you all, so do stay tuned. Check out Warchant.
What are we thinking, 5 o'clock for that maybe?
Yeah, that works. You want to do 5?
I think so, because I think the Bravos play at 6.
Oh, okay, nice. I see.
So get that done in time to watch the Braves hopefully take a 2-0 advantage on the Dodgers. Look, I'll be honest with you folks. Again, we're recording this before the series even starts. I'm hoping the Braves just win a game. The Dodgers are loaded. But if the Braves can win a game, I'll be happy about it. Plus, I'm an Atlanta fan, so I always go into postseason series with really low expectations.
Yeah. I like how the tail wags the dog over here. The Braves set the agenda.
Yeah, that's how we got to roll, man. I heard a quote on a podcast, and I'll let you guys go with this, but I think it's a good thing to think about as you move on with life. And you're a Florida State fan now, so you're naturally pessimistic. But he said, who was it? I can't remember who it was, but it was on a podcast. He's, look, I had a friend of mine like 20 years ago tell me pessimism is the worst thing you can ever have in life. It's unhealthy because you lose twice. You lose twice going into something because you think, oh, this isn't going to go well. And then it doesn't go well and you lose again. And it really is bad for your mental health. So you should always try to be positive. And if it doesn't go well, it doesn't go well. Oh, I'm surprised, but I only had to feel it once. Instead of being pessimistic, and then you have to feel it twice. You have to feel it beforehand when you're like, yeah, no chance, we're not going to win, or she's not going to say no, she's not going to say yes if I ask her out, or whatever's going on. I'm not going to get this job if I apply. You might as well have high expectations, and if it doesn't work out, oh well, you're bummed at least once instead of twice.
I could not disagree more, but I'm not going to poo-poo.
I'm kind of with you, actually.
Not going to poo-poo on that one.
Yeah, I disagree with it too, but it was an interesting thought.
Yeah. All right, right on. Well, very well then. Hopefully the Braves have a 1-0 lead as you're listening to this. We'll be back 5 p.m. live on YouTube Tuesday afternoon, evening, however you like to characterize 5 p.m. in your neck of the woods. For Corey, I'm Aslan. Thanks for listening to Wake Up Warchant, proudly presented by Zaxby's Indescribably Good.
Finally, an answer to the age-old question, which comes first, the chicken or the egg roll? Easy. Just eat whichever one's closest. The Sensation Salad and Filet Sandwich Meal are back at Zaxby's. Both feature our famous hand-breaded chicken, crispy wontons, Asian slaw, and citrus vinaigrette. And each comes with its very own egg roll for a limited time only at Zaxby's. Try them with fried pickles while supplies last.